If you're waiting for Next.js to update your website on a build like every 15 minutes or an hour, and your content managers or people generating content are waiting for these pushes to come, we have a solution for you with Payload CMS. Payload CMS has the ability to support page revalidation on update in the content management system. So let me break that down. So what that means is that you go into the back end, you make a change to a document, you could potentially preview the document to see what it's going to look like, and then when you're ready to go, you hit publish. That publish will trigger an action which will force Next.js to refresh the page on the next reload. So you get your changes from your back end pushed to your front end automatically using Payload CMS. That's what this video is about. Please make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get to it. Okay, to get started, we're just going to walk through this flow chart on how the page revalidation works in this demo app that I built. This demo app is stripped down as I possibly could make it, so you have a template for you to start from to just help you wrap your head around how this works, and then you can apply these same principles and patterns to your own solution. All right, so the way the flow works is that the editors in the back end in the CMS publishes a page. When they publish the page and hit save, Payload CMS has hooks. One of the hooks we're going to fire is an after change hook. What the after change hook does is it says if the user has marked it as publish, then we're going to make an API call to the front end to say, hey, here's this page. I need you to basically revalidate it, which says take it out of the cache so that the next time the person wants to render the page, it forces you to go back to the content management system and pull a new version of it. Now, that post comes from the back end to the front end. When the front end gets it, it validates the secret. So basically make sure that the person who's asking to revalidate that page, or the endpoint that's asking to revalidate that page, is valid based on a secret that it passed between the two. The next thing it does, it takes the tag for that page that was passed, and it basically clears it from the cache. Once the cache is cleared, the next person that comes to the page forces our fetch. It fetches with the tag. That fetch realizes that it doesn't have a cache value in it. So it goes back and fetches using a special call we created and retrieves the data from the CMS, the most recent data, and then it renders the fresh page content. All right, so that's the flow. Let's take a quick look at it. Okay, so here we have my page. Those of you familiar with CMS, this is a pages collection that I created. I just have this simple layout here with this one block because that's all I need for the purpose of the demonstration. Here's my page over here to the right. I also put the timestamp in so that you can see the updates happening. So I can come in here and say, this is a new update that needs to be reviewed. Right? So I can save this as draft. So now it's saved locally in the back end. It can be reviewed. And if you notice, if I refresh this page, no changes appeared. So this page has not been forced. So this page has not been validated yet. And it's a nice feature that Payload adds, which gives you the ability to actually preview the page. So if I click this link, see, I can get a preview of what the exact page would look like. And you can see the new text that's added here. And sorry for my UI design, but this header lets you know that this is a draft preview. And then if you exit, notice that you still have the original page. It's not a preview page anymore. All right, so let's go back to our CMS. So now I'm in my CMS and the page has been reviewed and everybody's all happy with it, so I publish a change. So now the change has been published. And if I go to my front end site now and I refresh the page, so this would be the next person hitting the page, you can see that the new change has been applied. You can see that the last update date has been updated, and there was no redeployment. There was no waiting around for Next to kind of come back through and regenerate the pages again. It just gets updated for you. This is pretty awesome. And now I'm going to quickly go through the key areas in the code that make this happen. Once again, I'm going to release this template. All right, let's get to the code. So I'm going to keep this side panel open over here so we can walk through the flow along the way. And so let's kind of follow its path. So you can see, where do we start? We start in the collection where the editor publishes the page. And so if we come over here to the side, go to Payload CMS, Collections, Pages. No real magic here. It's a regular Payload CMS page, but there's a couple of things that have been added here to make it work. The preview code has been added so that you can actually preview a copy of the document before it's actually shown on the live site. So that's what this preview code does. But the two things that matter most to us are this drafts flag. So you set this versions, and then this hook. This is what gets fired when the user saves the page. And so let's hop to this after change hook. After change hook is this revalidate on publish. So here in revalidate on publish, you can see the important kind of guard here. If it's not updating, then just return. If it's not published, then just return. But if it is published, this is where we make the API call to the front-end server, and we want it to revalidate a specific page. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pass it the slug to the page, and like I said, we're going to pass it the secret. See? So now we're down here, post to revalidate, validate secret. All right, so now this API call will get made, and it'll hit the front end. So now let's go to the front end. API, revalidate, route. And so here, so to validate route, scroll down. It checks the secret to make sure that this person's authorized to be doing this. Make sure that we have a slug. And then otherwise it calls this revalidate tag. And this message says clear. It's going to clear out the cache for this specific page. So that's this, cache cleared. And now let's go look at next visitor. And so this is when the page is being called again. And so let's go to our page on the front end. Our page on the front end is right here, this slug. Here's the page on the front end. We got a couple of things going on here. So the first thing is we have this lovely API call from Next Headers that lets us know if it's in draft mode or not. In this point, we are not in draft mode. So here's this function that's been written to account for the caching and the clearing of the cache and everything. So if we go to this fetch page by slug, it has quite a bit going on here. So this first part is it's pulling all the parameters and it's querying the endpoint to get the page, the data, the content for the page. And so it gets the parameters, it sets up the URL, makes the API call. Sorry, it doesn't make the API call. This is console logging out the information that it has. Then here it actually makes the API call. So it's calling back to Payload CMS to get the content that it needs. This indicates whether or not we want to cache it. If you're in draft mode, of course, you don't want to cache it, but otherwise we want to force the page to go into the cache. So what this is doing, it's saying, hey, this data that I get back from this fetch, I want you to tag it with the slug. That's how it's able to revalidate the cache using this specific tag, because fetch, this is Next.js's fetch, and it is tagging the results of this. So if I don't get a result back, I throw an error. We're still following along here. Otherwise, return the object. So now let's go back to the page that called it. So now we have all the information we need. That this is the preview banner, previews enabled. Otherwise, we just loop through and render the content of the page based on what we got back from Payload CMS. And then down here, this was just additional data that I render when you're in preview mode. And that's really it. Nothing else magical happening here. It did take me a while to kind of figure this out. And like I said, I wanted to kind of slim it down into just a small sample application that I could always go back to if I get confused, to kind of understand the flow and then integrate it into a larger solution. Hope you found this helpful. Please leave your comments below. Share your thoughts on what experiences you've had using this functionality from Payload. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.